Hello, so I'm back again. Long time no see, let's not talk about it. Today I'm going to be telling you the books that I've read in October. This is going to be part one because it isn't quite the end of August yet, and I want to be able to like show you all of the books I read in August without having to post this like mid-September. There'll be a part two with probably like 8 or 9 more books on it, and that'll conclude our wrap up of August. But today we're going to talk about the first 6 books I think that I read in August. These aren't the order in which I read them. These are just the order in which I want to talk about them. First one, Neon Gods by Katie Roberts. This is a Hades and Persephone retelling, and I didn't need to hear much more than that before I bought this, and I was so excited when I finally found it in stores because I went to like 4 bookshops before I found it, and I was very happy when I finally did. But this was not what I expected, and then when I thought I knew what to expect, and then it went and switched up on me again. And that's like not the book's problem, that's just me not reading anything other than Hades and Persephone retelling. Persephone is at a party when like her mum and Zeus spring on her that they've arranged a marriage between Zeus and Persephone. And in this book, Zeus is like this really bad dude, and it's like a very well-known rumor that he's like killed his past 4 wives, and Persephone doesn't want that for herself, so she basically runs away from him, and in a series of unfortunate events ends up crossing the river and ends up with Hades, who takes her in and starts like looking after her. And all this time Persephone thought Hades was just like this myth, because that's what Zeus has allowed everyone to believe, that like he's just this myth, this like boogeyman character. But like Persephone's with Hades and she's realizing that he's like not such a bad dude after all, and it's a romance. They obviously fall in love. The part that I just wasn't expecting was, I guess, like the sexual component of it. Like I knew it would be there, but like I wasn't expecting what it was, and then I thought it was gonna like just become really freaky deaky, and it didn't. And then whatever, I'm really looking forward to the next one. I've actually started following Katie Robert on Instagram, and I want to say that the next book in the series is called Electric Idols, but I cannot guarantee that, so I'm just gonna zip it and we're gonna move on to the next book. And I ended up reading that 4 stars. The next 2 books I'm going to talk about together because like my criticism on both of them are like exactly the same. The first one is Second First Impressions by Sally Thorne, and then the second one was The Road Trip by Beth O'Leary. So this book's basically about Addie and her sister who are in a car and they're road tripping to a friend's wedding when they get rear-ended, and lo and behold, it's Addie's ex-boyfriend and his mate like in the car also going to the same wedding. And so they call up a tow truck and they take away the car, and then like everyone's like, well, what do we do? And since they're both going to the same destination, they decide that they'll just travel all together in one car. And it's just like this cesspool of like tension between Addie and Dylan's like her ex-boyfriend. There's sort of like reconciliation of like what happened and why their relationship deteriorated. And it's very similar to like All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover, if you read that, where you've got like the dual narratives, like one narrative where it's Dylan and Addie meeting for the first time and falling in love, and then you've got the other narrative of them road tripping together and all of this tension around their breakup and why they broke up, despite the fact that they obviously very clearly still have feelings for each other. Second First Impression is like the love story between Ruthie and Teddy. Ruthie works at this like retirement village-esque place, and she lives like on site in like this little cottage, which also has like a second dwelling right next door, and they share a wall, which sounds irrelevant. It comes into play, I promise. And basically this retirement home has just been bought out by this other company who are very well known for basically like bulldozing or getting rid of whatever was there first and building something else on top of it. So Ruthie's really worried that she's gonna like lose her retirement home, lose like her living space, and she's formed like a connection with all of the residents. She's worried about where they're gonna live should this place be like gone. And in walks Teddy, and he's the son of like the guy who owns this company that's just bought out the retirement village. And so like whilst Ruthie is wary of him, she's also like violently attracted to him. And he actually ends up moving into the place that's next door to her cottage where they share a wall. Whilst I enjoyed both stories, the issue I had with both Second First Impressions and The Road Trip is that they're just both like, they feel like would get adapted into like rom-com-y movies. And like what I mean is that like there's nothing like special or super engaging about their romances. There's no like tension really, there's no high stakes. They're just wholesome, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. Whilst there were traumas in both of them from both characters who had like issues and things they needed to work out, they were overall just very wholesome. So Second First Impressions I gave 3 stars, and The Road Trip I gave 4 stars. Next one I'm going to talk about is November 9 by Colleen Hoover. I really enjoyed this. Ignore this weird ass tab I put in. I didn't have like any like thin ones with me when I was reading, and I wanted to immediately bookmark it. This is Fallon and Ben, and Fallon was an aspiring actress when she was caught in a fire that was at like her father's house, and now like the side of her face is really burnt, as well as like one side of her body. It's basically like ruined her self-esteem. Her dad, who is like a famous actor, he basically tells her that she should just give up her dreams of being an actress, because why would anyone want her when they could have pretty young girls essentially. And he's telling her this in like the middle of a busy restaurant, and Ben is like sitting behind Fallon, overhears this, comes over and pretends to be her boyfriend, and they make this pact because they're both still really young when this happens. They're both like 18 or something, and so they make this pact that they're gonna go follow their own dreams, but they will meet every November 9. If you've read any Colleen Hoover before, you know that all of her stories are very tragic, and this one's no different. I gave it 4.5 stars, only because I gave the next book we're going to talk about 5 stars, and even though they were both really good, this one just couldn't compare, and I read them like back to back, and that was really unfair, but whatever. And that book is, of course, Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Oh my god, I cried, I bawled my eyes out with that story. I loved it so much. Obviously a 5 stars. And it's about Tate and Miles, who Tate's moving in with her brother, who's a pilot, because she needs a place to stay, and like he's not there a lot of the time because he's a pilot and he's always flying. And so she moves in, and on the night she's moving in, there's this like guy passed out on like the front door, and she rings her brother and she's like, what? And he's like, oh, he's a mate, like let him in, he'll come sleep on the couch, and like you can move into the bedroom and it'll all be good, it'll all be fine. Lo and behold, that boy who was passed out on the door was Miles. They basically agree to have like a friends with benefits arrangement, because since he's always flying, he doesn't really have like the time for a girlfriend. He's also got like all of these traumas, but like he doesn't say that. He's like, no, I just don't have time. And she's currently studying nursing. She doesn't want a boyfriend, she doesn't have the time for it either. So they have this like friends with benefits arrangement behind her brother's back, because her brother's made it like very clear that he doesn't want any of his friends dating Tate. It's so sad, it's so heartbreaking. You need to read it if you have not. So far it's literally been my favorite Colleen Hoover book ever. Now, speaking of Colleen Hoover books, this is one that I didn't love, and it was like my least rated Colleen Hoover book I've read so far. That's All Your Perfects. So this is Quinn and Graham, and like I said, it's similar to The Road Trip in the sense that you have these dual narratives, one where they were falling in love, one now where their marriage is broken down, and like they're really struggling to rekindle that connection. So I had this issue more with All Your Perfects rather than The Road Trip, but I found it really hard to invest in their romance when like simultaneously I was reading the breakdown of their marriage. It just sort of, because like when you're reading down the breakdown of their marriage, it brought to light like a lot of issues that they had. It sort of just made you aware of the fact that like their whirlwind romance, the fact that it was like very whirlwind, it was very magical. It was like, of course it wasn't going to last, and that's not how I want to feel when I'm reading these romances. I believe in the magic. So I only gave it 3 stars. If you're gonna pick up a Colleen Hoover book, I wouldn't recommend that one. I recommend Ugly Love or November 9. And they are the first 6 books that I read in August. Oh my god, I hope you enjoy. Look out for part 2 if you want, and I will see you in the very near future. Bye bye.